Well, look, I know there's a lot of bad news to be found out there with the border and everything else and the debt, but I do have some good news. The good news is the House of Representatives has a GOP majority. So at least we are going to put a stop to a lot of this insane nonsense. Joining me now to update all of us on how exactly that's going, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, one of the few good ones up there, Congressman Bob Good joins us. Okay, Congressman, grateful the GOP is in charge, that we're finally going to get some of this radical, crazy stuff under control. Can you give us an update on how all that's going?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a lot good to report as it applies to funding our government. As you know, we split the Omnibus into two mini buses. So I guess we can technically say we didn't do an Omnibus because we split the 12 spending bills into two pieces. But unfortunately, we're increasing spending ever so modestly, about $70 billion over the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer levels that were in place when the American people trusted us with the majority 14 months ago. And sadly, we're continuing the policies that are destroying the country. And so I'm planning to vote against this minibus that we expect to get text, I think, tonight, and to vote on by the end of the week. Unfortunately, again, it's not doing enough to reflect that we do have half of the legislative branch. And because, again, it's going to increase spending, it's going to keep the policies in place that we campaign against, that we run against, that we attack, and that we criticize.
Congressman, can you explain to people who don't understand why split it? Why even bother splitting it? If there aren't going to be any cuts, what did we gain from splitting it?
Well, I guess theoretically, at least, it makes it a little easier to review half a spending bill in a short period of time than it does a single spending bill. But materially, there's really no difference. I mean, I guess technically you can say, oh, we didn't do an omnibus like the Democrats did in December of 22. If you remember sort of the last gasp of full control of Democrat government, in December 22, they passed the $1.6 trillion, 3,000-page omnibus. It was kind of the last will of Richard Shelby from Alabama going out the door, and it had, just thousands of earmarks. It was passed by, I think, about 17 Senate Republicans joined it and passing it out the door. I don't think any House Republican voted for it. But really, those spending levels and those policies are still in place 14 months later. So while we have slowed things down, Jesse, we've not exacerbated the situation as badly as would have happened if Democrats were in full control. The minibus that was passed, the first half that was passed 2 weeks ago, 99% of Democrats voted against it. They voted for it. 99% of Democrats voted for it. So it was 207-2 for Democrats. Can you even imagine if Democrats had full control of government, or full control of the House, I should say, would Nancy Pelosi ever bring a spending bill to the floor that Republicans would pass 99%? And Democrats would only vote for it 2-1, like Republicans did?
Bob, could you explain, do Republicans on the Hill, do they care about spending? I get the impression, this is just the impression I get, that they don't, because the American people don't. Even the Republican voter really, truly doesn't. I realize some people in your district do, and people watching this show obviously do, but Republicans as a whole, they don't care about spending, so Republicans go to Washington and they don't want to cut anything.
Well, actions would confirm what you're saying there. We could speculate on what they really care about, but the actions would betray the campaign rhetoric or the talking points that we care about it. But I think the American people, Jesse, are realizing that the harm from the spending in increasing numbers, because they're suffering under 40-year high inflation and 20-year high interest rates. The average mortgage is some 60% more expensive than it was when this president came into office. They're paying about $1,000 a month more for the essentials, meaning groceries, housing, utilities, and gasoline than they were when this president got into office. So the American people are suffering. And I don't think spending and the debt and the deficit are just an abstract concept anymore, because the days of spending without consequence are over. Our credit's been downgraded twice in the last year. Again, interest rates are higher as a result. So it's really hurting the American people. And I think they understand that something has to change.
Yeah, I wish they did too. All right, moving on. Mayorkas. Is he actually going to get impeached? I know we had the inquiry, and it looks like he's going to get the heave-ho, maybe. I don't know. Now that we had that loser Ken Buck leave, I don't know. Where do we sit on all this?
Well, it did pass the House by one vote, and so it's been sent on to the Senate, so it's up to the Senate to take it up. The Senate does have to take it up. I don't know exactly what their timeline will be when they do take it up. But he certainly should be impeached. Frankly, the president should be impeached because of the border. We don't need any more evidence or investigation other than 10 million illegals who've invaded the country with the help, not being allowed in by this president, but being helped into this country by this president and his policies, Mayorkas being the primary person executing those policies. And Jesse, never in the history of the country, never before has our own president, and by extension his administration, done more to intentionally harm the United States than what this president has done with the border. You know, you probably just saw it in the last day or two. You had this Lebanese illegal alien who had ties to Hezbollah. He worked for Hezbollah for some 7 years, got caught. He got caught, thankfully, to go to New York and to make a bomb. And that's why he was coming into the country. How many do you think like that we might have in the 2 million the 2 million gotaways that we know about?
Golly. Congressman, thank you so much for being one of the ones trying to fight for us up there. I appreciate it. From Hezbollah comes across the border, he's making a bomb, and that's one of the ones they caught.